What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about The Amateur. Directed by James Hawes, this film stars people like Rami Malek, Laurence Fishburne, Rachel Brosnahan, John Bernthal, and many more. And before we get too far into this video, if you guys are a fan of early reviews like this, as well as up-to-date reviews in general, live streams, and all that fun stuff, then you're in the right place, and I'd like to ask you to consider hitting that subscribe button down below, and definitely hit that like button as it really helps the channel out. But if you're a returning viewer, well, thanks for supporting the channel and coming back once again. And as I already mentioned, we're talking about The Amateur, which comes from director James Hawes, and is based on a book by Robert Little. Now, going into this film, I'd seen the trailer a dozen times at least, and probably more than that. It was one of those trailers that was hard to miss. Now, going into it though, I am a sucker for a good revenge movie. I am a good sucker for an underdog movie, and I like Rami Malek. So I had a lot of things going for it, and I was pretty excited to check this film out. I got to see it at an early Dolby screening with just myself and other press members, which was really cool because it was a nice quiet screening where I was able to just really soak in that Dolby Atmos, which is always my favorite kind of thing to do. And so before we get into my thoughts on the film, let's get into what this film is all about. The Amateur focuses on the character of Charlie Heller, played by Rami Malek, who is a CIA decoder who is fantastic with technology and is easily the smartest guy in the room with the highest IQ, but is a pretty socially awkward guy. He's eclectic, doesn't really connect to social cues and humor, and doesn't really, get along with people in a lot of ways, but he's an incredibly smart guy, and he's a very great asset to the CIA. But who he's not socially awkward with is his wife, who is the character of Sarah, played by Rachel Brosnahan, who unfortunately is killed early on in the film in a London terrorist attack. When his superiors don't take the action that he wants them to take, he decides to take it into his own hand, utilizing his own skill set to try to track down the various killers and take them out one by one. That is the general gist of this film, and I'll start this off by saying that I'm a sucker for a good revenge movie, and I'm a sucker for a movie that's about a guy avenging his wife. As somebody who was recently married in the last year, yeah, if my wife was ever killed in something like this, I think I'd lose my mind and pretty much try to do what he does, minus the skill set that he has. And so while this movie is an underdog movie in a lot of ways that focuses on a character who doesn't really have the badass Jason Bourne skill set, he does have his own skill set that makes him a pretty interesting character. And I think Rami Malek is one of those actors who's proven himself so many times as a phenomenal actor, but he's able to bring something really different to this role. It feels like a Rami Malek performance, but at the same time, he brings this interesting, eclectic kind of way of being that makes him a very endearing character. I really enjoyed him in this film. And in a world where we have a lot of movies where you don't always know how to feel about the main characters, sometimes they try to make them conflicted, characters that are broken and have all these different layers to them. This is the character that is a good guy, a guy who follows the rules, a guy who has done his part to help his country through the CIA, through his skill set, somebody who just wants to live a good life with his wife. And even though he feels like he's done his part to be a good person, he's wronged in this situation and wants to do everything he can to avenge his wife. And so he really is immediately a sympathetic character. He's a character you feel like you can root for, and it's nice to watch a movie where you can really root for a character, especially in a revenge tale. He's a good guy. He's a good guy who wants to do right and feels like he's not being done justice, that his wife is not being done justice, that her legacy has kind of just been thrown to the side, and so he decides to use his skill set to save her. And I think Rami Malek captures that very well, playing a very likable character that you can easily root for, and was easily my favorite part of this movie. He carries this movie on his back. If you've seen the trailers for this film, and as I already mentioned, you also have people like John Bernthal in the mix, as well as Laurence Fishburne, who plays a fairly big role in the film, and it was nice to see them in here. I'll be honest in saying that I don't know that I love the inclusion of both of these actors in terms of what they do with their characters. Laurence Fishburne definitely has some of the best moments in the film alongside Rami Malek as somebody who is training him to go on and take on these enemies, but also somebody who has to go after him at a certain point in the film. And there are nice, likable moments with Laurence Fishburne here, but I do feel he's really wildly underutilized in this film, and I don't know that I necessarily love what they do with his character in the end. John Bernthal is in this film, and that's really all I can really say. He's in a few sequences in the film. I didn't really find him to be a really compelling character, nor was he a character that I felt was really integral to the story, but he is present, so it was nice to see him. I just wish they had done more with him. But outside of that, when it comes down to the filmmaking, I do think this is a very well-made film. I enjoyed the cinematography, the look, the feel, the vibe of this film. Definitely puts itself right into that spy espionage vibe that you want. There's some great moments of action and some great moments of tension, and I think all of that is really, really done well by the director, James Hawes. Now, James Hawes has directed a lot of television while he also has directed movies as well, and I kind of felt a TV vibe with this movie. There was an element of this film that felt like it would have almost been better as a mini-series. What I could say about it is that I really enjoyed it. I found it to be a good, fun time that is conventional and predictable at times. There are elements about it that feel very familiar to things you've seen before in this genre, but it's all executed well in a way where it was exciting to watch and engaging to watch for sure. But as the movie was playing out, there was something about it that made it feel overly long, and I think it really has to do with the pacing of the film, which is where I struggled with it the most. Because while I feel Rami Malek is incredible, while I do think the cinematography is great, and the fact that like a lot of spy espionage films, this film it has a globe-trotting element to it, so you have a lot of really beautiful scenery and locations that really make the visuals of this film incredibly lush. Despite all of that, and despite the fact that you have this fun revenge tale at the center of it that the trailers maybe show too much of, it's a movie that the pacing had a lot of stopping and starting, and I found myself slowly starting to lose interest as we got to the end, which ultimately was an ending that was satisfactory, but also at the same time a little bit underwhelming. And I think it really has more to do with not necessarily what the ending was, but how we got there. It just felt like there was too much stopping and starting with random side characters that ultimately didn't amount to much, that ultimately left me feeling like I'm torn on parts of this film. But I ultimately liked the film. I thought it was a good time. I thought that Rami Malek was solid in it. I think there's so much on a filmmaking level that is done right, and there's so much that's caught in camera in these locations and in a lot of these action sequences that gave the film a more tangible feel to it, which is always a plus in my book. And so ultimately, this is a film I do recommend. This is a film that I think many people are really going to enjoy, especially people who haven't seen the trailer at all or not nearly as much as I have, where a lot of those key moments were kind of, just something that I was waiting for watching this movie. But with all that said, this is a movie that I think many will enjoy, but I do think it's important to note that this movie runs at about 2 hours, and the other critics that were at the screening who saw this movie alongside me, we all kind of unanimously felt like the movie felt way longer than it was. And I think that's where this movie really was pulled back for me, is in its pacing. I wish that this movie just had a little bit more of a fluid pace to it. I'm all for a movie like this having downtime and allowing us to spend some time with the characters and get to know them. And there's some great moments in this film that do just that. But when you have side characters that feel wasted, and you have these, meandering subplots that don't really feel like they go anywhere substantial, it begs the question that this movie probably could have been a tighter hour-and-a-half movie, maybe an hour and 40, instead of the 2 hour and 3 minute runtime that it has, that in my genuine opinion feels a little over bloated and oftentimes made the film just feel really slow in moments and just killed the pacing. Anytime I found myself excited and back into the movie, I was kind of just like, okay, this is just okay, and then it'd be like, oh, this is awesome, and it just did that so many times that by the time I got to the end of the film, I wasn't loving it as much as I was in that first half. I still enjoyed it. This is definitely a film I can see myself rewatching. This is definitely a film I would recommend to people, but at the same time, I don't necessarily know if it's a film that you need to rush to theaters to see, but if you go see it in theaters, I'm sure you'll have a good time. Having seen it in Dolby, that Dolby Atmos experience is always top tier. I think the sound design of the film is really great as well. There's some great punchy sound to this film that I feel definitely added to the atmosphere of the film. And so overall, my experience was positive, but as you can tell, there was a couple of things that left me torn that really all leaned on the pacing of the film, despite great filmmaking and great performances across the board. And there was just parts of the story that just felt like if this had been a 3 or 4 part miniseries on a streaming service, I almost feel like the story would have been able to be fleshed out the way that I feel the visionary wanted to. But ultimately, it just kind of felt like it was was cramped, but also overly long at the same time in moments on a narrative level. But that's going to be my thoughts on The Amateur. I think it's a film that's certainly worth your time checking out, and if you don't go to see it in theaters and you see it pop up on streaming or see it available for rental, there's definitely far worse you can watch. I think this is a good, fun time. I think Rami Malek gives a fantastic performance, which is not surprising, and it's great to see big faces in here like Laurence Fishburne and John Bernthal, even if I do feel like they were fairly underutilized in the film. Again, not a perfect film, but one that I definitely recommend and enjoyed myself with. So that's going to be my thoughts on The Amateur, and I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. So hit that like button down below if you guys enjoyed the video, and leave some comments down below. Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? Are you planning on checking out this movie? Whatever the case may be, I'll see you beautiful people in the next one, all right? Bye-bye.